Today's episode is brought to you by the Bose S1 Pro multi-position PA system and westfloridarealestate.com. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. This is the long lost Joe Pisapia interview, which is a private joke between me and Joe. I got the one and only Joe Pisapia with us today. Great guy, solo artist, sideman, producer, does a ton of stuff. Couple of quick announcements. Number one, Doug Lancio, Chris Katros, thank you both for hooking me up with Joe. I appreciate it. And second, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe. You can subscribe to the audio and the YouTube portion of the show right there. And Carlos Santana and Joe Walsh, if anybody can get me to those two guys, please let them know. I'd love to have them as guests on the show. Let's make it work. All right, Joe Pisapia, singer, songwriter, producer, multi-instrumentalist who plays guitar, banjo, and keyboards. Best known for his work as a member of Gustar and Katy Lange and the Siss Boom Bang. He co-produced and co-wrote Gustar's 2006 release called Ganging Up on the Sun. That album cracked Billboard's top 25 and was one of the best-selling albums of the year. If you are a millennial, back in 2006, people were still doing something called buying records, so that's what I'm referring to. He did the same on the band's 2010 Easy Wonderful, and he produced and penned the title track for Katy Lange's 2011 album called Sing It Loud, and was music director for the accompanying tour. As a producer and mixer, he's worked on some of the finest indie rock and pop and Americana records to come out of Nashville in the last few years. He's a beautiful artist, man. I would encourage you to check out Joe's stuff. But among his credits are Ben Folds 5, The Hush Kids, Zach Clark, and many others. When the Grammy award-winning band Fun needed orchestral recording for its Grammy performance, they called on Joe right here. Born and raised in Rahway, New Jersey, just outside of, no, what was that prison called? Joe migrated to Nashville in the mid-1990s with his brother, the drummer Mark Pisapia, as the namesake members of Joe, Mark's brother. Coolest band name I've ever heard, man. Following its Rick Clark-produced self-titled debut record, the band quickly became a critical part of the indie pop and rock scene that included artists such as Josh Rouse, David Mead, and Lamb Chop. While Joe, Mark's brother, as a unit now performs infrequently, Joe continues recording and performing as a solo artist. In 2016, Joe collaborated with singer-songwriter Kate York for the duo. What do you pronounce? Duo? I always screw that word. It's a basic word. Like, it's not like an SAT word, but I always struggle with duet EP. Kate York and Joe Pisapia. The song All My Worry was featured on the 2016 Magnolia mixtape vinyl release. Those are really pretty good, actually. In 2018, Joe released 2 full-length solo albums. Connection was released in February, and Cosmic Christmas launched in November. And since it's Christmas time that you're hearing this, we're going to talk about Cosmic Christmas later because you should check it out. It's a really good record, and Joe's got an original song on there too. Earlier this year, Joe put out a single of Gustar's called Jesus on the Radio, and the A and B sides are 2 entirely different takes on the same song. That's a very cool thing, man. Joe's finishing up his latest album that he will come back here on Everyone Loves Guitar in the spring and launch it. And he lives in East Nashville with his wife, Jenny. Joe, thanks so much for your time, man. I'm glad we finally connected. You were in Gustar from 2003 to 2010. I was curious how you initially connected with those guys and then what prompted you to leave. I know it was on good terms because I've seen you guys playing not that long ago together in Nashville.
Yeah, that's right. The story goes back to maybe, it's got to be about 99 or 2000. I believe Josh Rouse, who's been kind of like the extended family in Nashville, like we were saying back in the day. Josh was opening for Gustar and gave them somebody from Josh's crew. I think they argue over who did it. It was either Josh Rouse or David Gerke. They both take credit for giving the Gustar guys the Joe Mark Brothers CD.
Oh, cool.
Those guys were like, we love this CD. You guys got to open up for us. And we said, sure, sign us up. And we became fast friends, you know. And then they were recording their record called Keep It Together. And they were working with a good friend and somebody we worked with, a guy named Roger Mutino, who's got a big track record of great stuff. Paula Cole, Josh Rouse, Yola Tango. So Roger was working with the guys at Sound Emporium, which is on Belmont Boulevard, and I lived 2 blocks down from there in my apartment. And Ryan came over from Gustar for a break, and we wrote a song in my little bedroom
on
studio.
His break.
Yeah, he had to get out of the studio for a minute, ride his bike around.
Yeah.
He came over to my studio, and then we wrote a song. That's the first song we ever wrote was Jesus on the Radio. which is the one
Wow.
I did that thing for. You know, it's kind of a cult fan favorite or whatever, because we always used to do it without a mic at the end of the night. You
Oh, that's
know,
nice, man.
just totally, what do you call it?
Like a cappella?
Yeah, like bluegrass style, right?
That's cool, man.
So yeah, it was a fan favorite for that because it had a hook, a shtick, And then after that, it was like the guys were like, hey, when they were doing that record, Keep It Together, they were always a 3-piece, and they had added a bunch of overdubs because they were changing. They were developing. They wanted to get deeper into like the psychedelic, thick production of the Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, and Pet Sounds and all that. So they said, man, we put too many overdubs on here. Would you come out and help us present the music just for the promo? I was going to come out for the promo tour. And then, once you start rearranging everything, it's like, then it's hard to let that one extra piece go. So it was like a little 4-month commitment turned into like 8 or 9 years, 7-8 years. Like,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about the Bose S1, which is an amazing speaker for acoustic guitar gigs that I recently got to test drive. The S1 has 2 separate channels. It's got one for guitar and one for microphone. And there's a third channel you can use for a looper or for backing tracks that you can access by Bluetooth or through a 1/8 inch input. And the S1 is actually portable and rechargeable for up to 11 hours. So the guitar and mic channels, they have separate independent tone, volume, and reverb controls. And they also have something called a proprietary tone match switch, which EQs, optimizes, and restores the natural sound of your acoustic guitar, which, as you know, is typically your biggest problem when you're playing acoustic amps. I tested the S1 speaker, and it's very responsive to pickups, and the tone, volume, and reverb controls genuinely work great. You can position the S1 4 different ways. You can tilt it back to broadcast out to an audience, or you can put it horizontally, vertically, or on a stand. The S1 also has a proprietary Bose accelerometer, which automatically adjusts the EQ and optimizes the sound based on whichever one of these 4 positions you're using. So effectively, you have an acoustic guitar amp, a PA, and a killer Bluetooth speaker all in one. So the bottom line is, if you're an acoustic player, there's absolutely nothing out there that sounds this good and this big, that's portable and battery powered. And the S1 also happens to be the best Bluetooth speaker Bose makes, which says a lot. I used it myself for a party we had here one night, and it was absolutely amazing. All my kids were freaking out. It's like having a full stereo system out on your patio. You can easily use this for DJing, tailgating, or whatever you want. Before this, you'd have to spend thousands of dollars on a bunch of equipment to get the same thing the S1 does. On top of that, it's sleek and it looks great, just like all Bose devices do. And besides whatever money back guarantee you get from wherever you buy the S1, Bose also warranties the S1 for 2 years from any kind of defects in materials or performance. For more information and to find out where to get your own S1, I'd like you to go to pro.bose.com/podcast. Check it out at pro.bose.com/podcast and get the S1. It's outstanding. This is an important announcement for anyone who wants to advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar. Over the last 9 months alone, we've had 425,000 more downloads, added over 25,000 monthly listens, and grown our YouTube subscriber base by 72 times. During this time, we've kept our advertising rates consistent, but we will be increasing rates on January 1st. So if you're a business looking to generate new leads or increase your cash flow by picking up new clients or customers, or if you're a label looking to promote new music, then listen up. For information on advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, fill in the short form at everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Again, that's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Even if you want to advertise next year, you'll get to lock into marketing your product or service at the current rates before rates go up at the end of this year. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. And what prompted you to leave?
Well, it was really what it was back then. I was always hoping, you know, we were road warriors. We would leave the house 4 months at a clip.
That's a lot.
You know, oh man, Craig, it was like, you know, we had a big semi, and in the front of the semi trailer, they call it the dance floor. It's the thing that sits over the fifth wheel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you got to go up a step. That's where we had winter clothes and summer clothes in boxes, like it was your attic.
Wow.
Like we lived on that thing. We lived out on the road. We had our bicycles hanging up in there, everything. So it was kind of overwhelming. I felt like my life was becoming too monotone, and I really wanted, you know, to get into like just that silent space where you can be creative with you know, like, and I feel like on the road you never get that. You're always like strange places. You can't really make a lot of noise. You're in a hotel, you know. So I really wanted to come home and be creative, and it was right around that same time when I started flirting with Katy Lange. And I've always been, you know, everybody's got their top 10, top 5 records. Ingenue from her was, if it's not my top 5, it's in my top 10 for sure. And having a chance to work with her was like, are you kidding me? Like, she's a hero of mine. So yeah, I kind of went all in. Yeah, I kind of just said, because I had given them a heads up, like at a certain point, I'm going to probably be splitting off. And they said, just do us a favor, help us finish this record. We were working on Easy Wonderful. And after that, you know, if you give us notice, I said, sure, you know, obviously. And trying to find that window, Craig, where I didn't leave them in the lurch was really tough because they were so busy.
Yeah.
And we finally found it. Like where it was like and I think maybe they had 6-8 weeks to get it together. But the funny thing is, when I told them I was leaving, they said, what are we going to do? Get Luke Reynolds in here? Luke is a great guitar player, multi-instrumentalist. I said, yes, that's what you're going to do. I already talked to Luke about it. It was a mutual thing. Luke had planted the seed with me. Hey, if you ever know of a gig like this, let me know. Oh. And I said, even this gig? And he said, yeah, even this gig. I said, nope. Okay, noted, you know.
I give you a lot of credit for having the courage to leave, because it's a tough thing to do. And I know you're a sweet guy, so you probably felt bad, but, you know, self-care, man, is like, if you're not taking care of yourself, especially as an artist, you know, and as a musician, your music's going to suffer, but it's tough to do. So I really give you a lot of credit for pulling that trigger.
Well, thanks, man. You know, you hit the nail on the head. You read all the stuff, self-care, be yourself, all that stuff. It's very hard to do. Yeah. I mean, everybody puts memes up about it, but really doing it right is difficult. And I remember sitting on a plane one time with a, you know, older woman who was we got into conversation.
There you go. I heard about you.
Yeah. In the movies, you see Mrs. Robinson, Harold and Maude. You know my shit. But anyway, so we're sitting out there and we're just having a good conversation, and she said, see what they said there? Put your own mask on first. I wasn't even talking about this, but talking about something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to take this wisdom. The universe just gave me a nugget.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it works. So
yeah, it is how it works. Good for you. I'm happy that you did that. I'm sure. I know how tough it was. And it, with these things, always seem to, like, when you make a decision, you never leave. It's always a period of, you know, you never go to the dentist the first day your tooth aches, and you never do something like that. The first thought you have, it's like, you know, if you wait too long, then the pain of being in there is so great that, you know, you got to get the hell out. So good for you that you didn't let it go, man. I'm happy for you. You produced a lot of records that I did not mention in your bio because it's a really long list. How did you get into producing, and what do you like most about that?
You know, I'll be honest with you. For me, I was always the biggest, you know, I don't know. I was the guy that was like, how come it doesn't sound like this? And unable to articulate what I didn't like. And I would throw things out like, maybe it needs more compression. Maybe it needs more distortion. I didn't know what I was talking about. So I felt like I had to go get the tools myself and figure out what it was that I wasn't hearing in other people's stuff. Because I think I was driving engineers crazy. You know what I mean?
Yes, but yeah.
I got my own rig. Oh, I like this. I like that. I'd like to, and it's really just to take the time and privacy and, you know what I like? I like when the mic, I like when I put this EQ on the mic, and I like when I sing softly into this. Let's listen back. Now let's take it. Let's listen to headphones. Let's listen to the speakers. All those experiments, all the trials and errors I needed to go through myself because I was hearing something that I wasn't able to articulate to others of how to get, you know? And I felt
Yeah.
like I'm going to be either I'm going to drive others crazy or I'm going to figure out how to communicate these things, you know? And so for me, it was like, I didn't go to school for it. I just got some shitty, back then it was pretty bare bones tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then you keep experimenting, you know? And then being in Nashville, and everybody, one thing about Nashville is like the community. This community is,
It's awesome.
I don't live here for the weather. I don't live here, you know what I mean? It's like, this community is top notch, and you could ask anybody who's advanced, and they'll come in and say, Joe, let me show you how to use a compressor. Let me show you what you're doing wrong here. You know what I mean? And it was so helpful. So many helpful people, you know?
I've interviewed people from 25 countries, the Nashville community. There's nothing like it. The support and the lack of, you know, I'm sure there's some competitiveness, but overall for the people that are successful, they're very supportive, very encouraging. And I agree with you. It's just a wonderful place to be, man.
Yeah.
So you basically said, man, I got to do this myself. Were you always that driven? Because you just told me two things that you're like, you know, I have to do this. That's pretty cool. A lot of people don't do that.
I don't know about a lot of other people if they feel this way, but like my favorite, what do you call it? My favorite endorphin rush is waking up after a day of doing a bunch of recording and hearing what happened. Like that to me never gets old. It's like Christmas morning every time I go in there. Oh man, this is so cool. Listen to that. And that has never gotten old for me. And so it's not like I'm some disciplined dude as much as it just feels hedonistic to do. It's so joyful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So the sheer joy of it. So let me ask you this question then. Because I didn't learn this till late in life. Where did you get the encouragement to do what you like?
You know, when I grew up, my parents were pretty cool about this stuff. My brother and I grew up in an Italian store, so we were busy. You know what I mean? We were
like a deli, like a
deli
right.
catering. You know what it's like. You grew up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And there were sandwiches during the day, all that stuff. Everything was homemade, and you know. But we worked in there since we were 12 or 13. I helped my grandmother with all the, you know, core the peppers, do all the menial stuff for her. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then anything I couldn't mess up, you know. And then
best food ever in those places, though. That's the thing.
I mean, it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit sad now that we don't, you know, we don't have reality anymore. But we do our best to try to recreate the recipes. But at night, I would have, I would come home and just zone out to that was sort of my peace and quiet, was go downstairs and zone out. My brother and I would jam together. We had a drums and guitars in the basement or whatever, or like just zone out myself and, you know, put a bunch of effects on the amp and just get lost for 2 or 3 hours and, you know, record an idea on the 4-track, whatever it was, you know what I mean? That was sort of like my meditation, I guess. And it was just so enjoyable, you know? And our parents totally supported that. You know, we always had our bands and everything. And
that's really cool. That is the number, and I've said this loads of time on this show, but that's the number one commonality between the most successful musicians is parents were supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number one, you know, even if there was dysfunction or stress, that they were supportive is one thing that 99.9% of the people have in common.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and your brother are doing music down in the basement. How'd you first get started in the business, and what was your first big break?
Well, it's funny how that happens. I feel as if, like, you know, one day I remember saying to myself, one day I won't have to wait tables anymore, you know? And I was like, hold on a minute. I haven't waited tables in 6 months. It just occurred to me. And I remember I have a buddy who's a mentor in town. His name's Dan Tyler. And Dan, he's a few years older than us. And his son is William Tyler, who's a very accomplished guitar player in the vein of a John Fahey. He does a solo
Oh,
thing.
cool.
And I've worked on a couple of his records. But Dan was a big time songwriter, wrote some hits for Leanne Rhymes, the Oak Ridge Boys, all this other stuff. And he would always give me advice, you know, on, because I was always so cerebral. He's like, man, you got to dumb it down. But
This is when you moved to Nashville.
yeah.
Okay.
And he just took a liking to our band and stuff. And one day we were driving around in his car and he's showing me some of his songs. And I said, so what do? You record? He's like, you record these songs. He would hire a singer, demo singer, all this stuff. I said, well, who does this work for you? And he said, there's a guy, blah, 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 does it. I said, could I try doing this? Would you let me do it? He's like, you could do this? He said, I didn't know if I could. I said, yeah, sure, I could do that. And he gave me a shot and I did. And then I started doing his demos for him. And, you know, it was really fun and we'd have a great time. We'd bring in great singers and my brother would come over, play some drums, or, you know, I'd come do the bass, the guitars, sweat out the arrangement, you know, go back to the drawing board, all that stuff. I could take as much time as I wanted between, you know, him leaving and him coming back. And then it was just a great way to get started. It was a good break for me.
That's great, man.
You know?
And from there, you'd come in and then you start doing demos for others, I'm assuming as well. Does that happen next?
You know what, to be honest with you, I went right from that to doing records. And I think what happened was because I had done, this is the story of whatever my career is. I've always done my records and it's like quality over quantity. I don't have a lot of fans, but the fans I have are quality.
Yeah.
And every time I've done a record, something good has happened. So right around that time, I started to get, and I can't remember what came first. I was doing a solo record called Daydreams. And, you know, I don't know how many people heard that record, maybe 1,000, maybe a little more, a little less. But some of those guys were singer-songwriters, started hiring me to do their work. And so then the next thing you know, I was doing records. I did a record for a guy named Dan Haas, who's an Annapolis singer-songwriter. And we had a great time. And
when you say you did a record for him, you did the demo or you produced?
I just produced a record for him.
Okay.
And we just did it bare bones. Like, it was usually a small crew. Like, my brother played the drums. Dan sang acoustic, did the acoustic and sang the vocals. And then he and I just filled in the rest of the blanks, you know?
Great.
Yeah.
So it just started snowballing from that.
Started snowballing from there, yeah.
And it's really amazing. Everybody's story is individual, but it seems it's almost impossible to do something good in music and not have another opportunity come out of that.
That's the way it works, right?
Yeah, it's just it's amazes me. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, it's like you do good work, and you know, if you're a good guy or a good gal, it's good things seem to come from that. Everybody knows somebody else, and eventually that your name comes around, and it's like, you know, call Joe. It's a very cool thing. So talk about, you mentioned K.D. Lang. Talk about, how did you actually get the gig with her, and how did you and is there any interesting stories about your experience there?
This is a funny story. So when we were with Gustar, one of my favorite guys that I became friends with was our front of house guy. His name's Gordon Reddy. And he's been doing front of house. He's been on the road since he was a little kid.
Okay.
And he's probably, I don't know, 5 years older than I am. Anyway, so we were doing the record I was talking about, Easy Wonderful. This is about 2008, 2009. And so because we were off the road writing and recording, he had taken a job with Katy Lang doing monitors.
Oh.
So they were playing the Ryman Auditorium. And he said, Joe, you got to come see the show. I'll put you on the guest list. So I said, yeah, I'd love it. So he said, but why don't you come by at soundcheck? I'd love to introduce you to the band. The band is fantastic. I want you to meet these guys. Blah, 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 blah. And he had given some of these guys my record called Daydreams, which is the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I get there and he goes, he introduces me to Katy. He's like, my favorite singer, meet my favorite songwriter. And I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, right, you know? So I said to her, I was like, great to meet you. I'm a big fan of your work, you know? And she told me, like, and we just kind of had a little smirk together, you know what I mean? Her and I. And she told me that at that moment, she's like, I knew I'd be friends with you forever because of that moment. I don't know why. Shit just happens. You can't make heads or tails of it. You know what I mean? And so she really enjoyed, you know, some of the guys in the band maybe hipped her to this record, Daydreams, that I did. And she really connected with it. And so she said, you know, I want to write songs with you and this and that and the other. And we met on a writing date.
Wait a minute. So the first day you meet her, she's telling you, I want to write songs with you.
No, like a week later, I get a call from Gord, my friend Gord. KD wants to write with you, you know? And I said, really? Are you kidding me? So,
dude, that's so cool.
Yeah. So next thing you know, she was busy. This is the same time she couldn't tell me she had a big thing coming up. She's going to be singing at the opening ceremony of the Olympics.
Right.
So she couldn't tell anybody about that. It was top secret. But she says, I can't really meet until, you know, after this smoke clears. There's something big I'm doing. And I got to concentrate on it. And so by the time I was like, what am I going to bring? You know, what am I going to bring to the first writing thing? I don't know, because co-writing to me is so strange and awkward to this day. I mean, I know that's a big thing in Nashville.
Yeah.
But it's very vulnerable. I don't know, you know. So basically she came over. We had a 2 or 3 hour conversation, had a big lunch, and then came back and just started getting into it, you know, organically after our conversation, what we were thinking about, you know. And then
that probably helped out a lot because at least you have like, yeah, I could see what you're saying. You just sit down cold and start writing. It's like you don't know the other person really. Yeah, that I could see that's kind of weird.
To me, it's very awkward. But
Yeah.
but the people that I really connect with are the people that maybe you've had beers with, or you've had lunch with, or you just took a walk with, and just talk about life. And then, you know, that starts to get like where the inspiration comes from, the concepts. Everybody repeats themselves in certain ways. You say that's a concept, something you're thinking about, you know? Whereas trying to pluck something from thin air, what do you want to write about? Get some titles or whatever, you know what I mean? That's
yeah, because you don't. Well, do you like nature? Do you like boating? Did you have a good childhood? Did you have a bad childhood? Were you married? Yeah, right. Relationships, yeah, because it's really hard. Because where do you start with that? Because it is a very vulnerable thing to sit and write songs in the first place.
Right, and you want to make sure the concept's sticky and thick.
Yeah,
you know? Something that you really dig into, like a good meal. You know, it's not something that's going to fill you up for 20 minutes. You want it to be a feast. You know what I mean? If you're going to sit down and do it.
Spoken like a true Italian with your hands going and everything, Joe. I love it.
Everything is a good analogy with me in the studio. Everything.
That's good. That's a good, man. Good writers and good communicators, man. That's what shit is. It's like this, right? It's an easy to explain analogy. Yeah, I'm right there, man. That's good. And that was it. So then you guys just hit it off, and that was it.
Yep. So we did. She said, I had just built my studio. This is the thing. I have a studio. And she said, you got a studio? Let's call in. Let's get a crew over here. Let's record a demo of these songs that we wrote. She said, call your brother, call blah, blah, blah. And she call a steel player, call a keyboard player. I'm like, hold on. I don't even know how to work my patch pad. I didn't tell her that. I just built the patch pad. I don't even know how to control it yet.
Oh my God.
I used a cheat sheet. I had blown up real big. You know, I was like, this goes here. And I said, what if we do a 3-piece and we do the overdubs after? She said, sure, that's fine too. I said,
and you're like,
yeah, exactly. That's on the brow, right? So we did that. And one of the songs we cut ended up on the record. And then we redid a few. She said, you know what? She's like, finish these up. Show me how you would do it. And I remember one of the songs, I just wanted to have this weird, like, sort of Debussy meets Django Reinhardt solo section of flowery fake strings and just this, you know, sort of gypsy-ish. And I showed my wife. She said, you can't send that to her. It's too sick. It's too flowery. I said, no, I wanted to know that I'm a freak. And if she wants to work with me because she likes my freakdom, then it's gonna be a good thing. But I was like, yeah, anybody could do the engineering, do the thing. I want to have fun, and if she wants to have fun in the same way, then we have a match.
And if not, better to vet it out now than like pretend.
Exactly.
I totally get it, man.
The best thing that she heard it, she laughed because it was funny and fun, and she loved it. You know what I mean? So it's like I took a chance. I put something out there. I wore something silly, and she laughed, and you know, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Good for you, man. I have so much respect for musicians in general for having the courage to just be like that, you know, naturally. It's really cool. And I've learned a lot and grown a lot in that direction just from doing this show. It's been really inspiring to me. Yeah. And I love hearing stories like that, man. And to the point where, like, my kids are older, but I really emphasize to them now to, whatever decision they're making, go with the thing that feels good, man. You know, I mean, common sense, not, you know, you can't go with the thing that feels good to if it's a stupid decision, you know, but,
Right.
you know, and we all do plenty of those, but, you know, it's been real life changing. I love hearing that, man.
Well, it's funny. Last night when my wife and I were talking before we went to bed. I said, I want to get ready for the interview tomorrow. I want to get inspired, you know? So I was like, let me listen to some of my favorite guys. You know what I
You
mean?
put some of my interviews on?
Yeah. And I'm listening to Brian Sutton, you know?
Oh, he was great.
I got a chance to work with him, and I just thought, I was like, hold on a minute. This guy is like, you know, just even be sitting across from him, like, hey, would you show me how to do that? Of course, because we're in Nashville, he's cool enough to show me some tricks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm listening to his interview, and I'm about halfway through it. He said, "Yeah, one of the things I wish I would have done, I don't know if you remember this part. I do a lot of interviews, but he said, I wish I would tell myself, remember to have more fun." I thought, man, that's really interesting hearing him say that.
Yeah.
Because to be at the level where he is, and I could hear him say, well, I would beat myself up after I did a solo that I made a mistake in or something. We all know what that's about, you know? We all know what that's about. Now, just to hear him say it, somebody you think is like you know, this guy can do no wrong. You know what I mean?
10-time international bluegrass performer of the year. Yeah. Guitarist of the year.
Everybody beats himself up. You know, we're all going to do it. So, but it was nice to hear him say it.
Yeah, he's a good guy. That was a really nice interview. I remember I didn't, because his demeanor, he was a little quiet. I didn't know, because I didn't know, to me, I mean, I didn't know him really well. And he was so open, and it was great, man. It was, you know, he talked about his family, his kids, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was really nice. I remember that one. Ben Folds 5. How did you connect with those guys? And interesting story or a fun story about working with them?
Well, okay, so I'm multitasking. I'm getting coffee as I'm doing this. I could do all this. I could handle it.
Hey, after Tom Britt peed while he's on the interview, you could do, and the doors are open. Anything goes here, man. Honestly, I would never never make sure. Hey, follow your heart.
Follow your heart. So I've got this buddy named Sam Smith, and it's not the singer, not the English singer. This guy, Sam Smith, is like, I've known him since he was 17. His parents used to bring him to see Joe Mark's brother, and they would get a note from the manager of the club to let them chaperone because it was over 21 back then, you know? Anyway, so I know Sammy from back then. And then later on we always were friends, you know? And I did a record called Night Vision, and Sam produced it with me because this is when I was with Gustar for all those years. And I was telling you, part of the reason I left is because I couldn't find that quiet place where it's like you get into the creative zone and you know what you're doing because you're in a flow. You start to know which ideas are better than others. I was completely lost. I had too many ideas and no perspective on those ideas. So sweet Sam Smith came over and A&R'd the shit out of this record. I had him listen to 75 ideas, and you know, who's gonna have the patience to do that? And he helped me cull it down to the ones that I should finish, the ones that were better and stronger than others. And anyway, so we were deep in the creative throes together. And he also, his day job at that time was playing drums for Ben Folds in the solo band. So when Ben said he wanted to do a record with the band, Sam said, you should think about Joe because he basically sat down with Ben on the road and played him the Katy Lange record, and Ben really loved it. And so Ben said, hey man, he called me up. He's like, I got a short list of producers in this record, one of them being himself. And I said, I totally understand what you're talking about. I said, even if you want a sounding board, because you may not need a producer as much as a confidant. I said, I'd be happy to listen or almost be like Sam did to me, like pay it forward. If you want me to help A&R it, if you want me to, whatever you want. If you just need a guy to come in the middle, is this working or that working? Just let me know. I don't, and then he hit me up. Let's do this thing,
So that's how you got to produce the record.
Yeah.
That's nice. But it seems all of this is driven by your own personal open-mindedness. Like you were open to say, you knew that you needed help. You weren't afraid to ask for it. You knew you wanted to write with Katy Lange. You weren't afraid to say, yeah, let's get to know each other before that. That's a very, that's really cool that's the net result of all that stuff.
I always feel like everything's an experiment,
Yeah.
Like we just did a tour. My wife's like, are you crazy? This tour is ridiculous. So busy. And she's like, what do you think? You're 25 years old. Like, it's not gonna be that bad. It was hard. It was so hard, Craig. It was so much harder than I thought. But it was an experiment and it was a blast. But it's like next time, maybe not so many shows in a row like that. Maybe it's too much, you know what I mean? Yeah. But you have to try stuff to know where you're strong and where you're weak and what you could improve upon next time. It's like, and a lot of it was house shows. So it was experimental. Like, how's this going to go? How did you do a set list to make people, how do you create a pin drop audience with a set list? Well, after the second or third show, you figure that out, you draw the people in. It's just like trial and error, and I just read this quote this morning. It said, don't live 75 years of the same year. Yes. Right? You know what I mean? And so for me, it's like, try this, do a solo record. Maybe nobody's going to hear it. Maybe, maybe a lot of people are going to hear it. Who knows? Just try stuff.
Yeah, because the only thing you do know is if you don't do it, nobody's going to hear it.
There you go.
I agree with you, man. I like that. Everything's an experiment. I got something to talk to my younger son about, and I'm going to use that to give him an analogy. I think that's great. Thank you, man. When I listen to you, and I mentioned this before we started recording, your singing and your songs remind me a lot of Paul Simon, especially your voice. Your voice is very warm, like I said, and it really draws you in. I was just curious if he was an influence on you, and whether he was or not. What drew you to that? Like, I don't know if I'm trying to style of performing, but how did you? That's your thing. How did you come? Your comfort level. You're very comfortable. I don't know what it is, but something that you're doing just draws you in. And like I said, your voice is very warm.
It's funny too, because before you're talking about what you're referencing is me post 32 years old. But before that, I was a rambunctious noise rock. Like I had a Marshall 212 and a Fender Super Reverb just going balls to the wall.
Really?
3-piece band, you know what I mean? Like psychedelic rock out trio. But it was before there was video and all that. And it was sort of like nobody really remembers that part of, the sort of unhinged Joe Pisapia that was just rock and blah, blah, blah.
Unhinged.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, but then
you're unhinged.
But then like, as I got a little older, I started to, I don't know what it was, I started to really gravitate towards acoustic more, because a lot of people, I think of me more on acoustic than electric these days. But inside, it's almost like, you look in the mirror, like, who's that old fucker? But
I don't look in the mirror.
Yourself as like, oh, I remember that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You changed, and you just, you could laugh with a chuckle about sometimes the differences, because they're radical, and especially if they've changed organically, and it's been such a radical change, it's always funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But so it was, for me, it was like, I don't know, after being on the road, doing all those big, loud 3-piece shows, it sort of was a thing where I remember what it was too, Craig. It's like on our my 32nd birthday, my brother and I and Hags, we had done this experimental tour.
Are you guys twins?
No, my brother's 2 years younger.
Okay.
So we're doing our 3-piece tour. We did a thing called the Stream of Consciousness tour. This is in the year 2000. And we played in streets. We had these little battery packs, very primitive back then. You know what I mean? The little battery inverters, tiny little combo amps, like solid state amps that wouldn't draw a lot of current. And my brother had turned his floor tom into a kick drum, blah, blah, blah. We had we would just go guerrilla style and play. And we wanted to tour the West because it's so hot in Nashville in the summer. Let's get to the West and go to the mountains and play around. And we had this great experience. We camped out every night, cooked by the campfire, the whole thing. And we got our stuff stolen.
Oh man.
Oakland. Get this.
Bastards.
We're talking about, let me sort of spin my own mythology or whatever.
Let's do it, man.
It's fucking weird. I had bought a Rickenbacker, a 68, which is my vintage. I'm 68. 68, 360, 6-string, Maple Glow, Rickenbacker on my 21st birthday for $450. Area Music in Rahway, New Jersey. And that guitar got stolen on my 32nd birthday. I bought it was an 11-year loan from the Cosmos or whatever. It's like, on your birthday, this is going to happen. It's going to be a transitional thing. So we get these guitars stolen. I had the Telly of Doom. I had a homemade Telly that my friend, who they called the Tone Chaperone, this guy's name is George Bradfute, an unsung hero of Nashville that nobody knows unless you're a singer, songwriter, producer, blah, blah, blah. This guy has helped so many people in Nashville, like Webb Wilder, all these guys. He's taught us all how to get good tone over the years.
That's really cool.
This guy, George, built this Telly, and I knew there was no serial number. There was no way I was going to get it back, but it was a perfect Telly. So I get these guitars stolen. We used to, then fast forward like 2 months, there was a great store in town called Broadway Music Consignment. This is before eBay. And it was where everybody just said, I'm tired of this. I'm going to consign it.
Okay.
And not only that, they had a cafe in the back. So basically every musician in town would stand around every Saturday morning and trade stuff, drinking big coffees. You'd be in there for 4 hours playing all this stuff. They had racks of stuff, cases, whatever you needed. I found a 1924 Gibson L Jr. And I thought, look at that guitar. It looks like, something Robert Johnson would play. I don't know. I have to have it, but I know it's going to be out of my price range. Turns out it's $550. I'll take it. And it because it was a real small body with a tiny sound hole. It made me play differently. And I developed this, started developing this finger technique, this ragamuffin thing. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's not like a Scruggs or whatever. I don't know. I don't have any like technique, claw hammer, any of that. It's just get her done, Joe Pisapia style technique. What's going to come out here? And that guitar sort of shaped a lot of these songs and a lot of this style.
Interesting. So out of the theft from the Stream of Consciousness tour, isn't it so weird how all this shit is connected?
Yeah.
It's nutty, man.
I mean, I'm really steep in the myth here, but honestly, I'm not making it up. Yeah. That's just how it happened.
And just for people, you guys listening, go on YouTube and just look at Joe Pisapia, Pisapia, and he's got a lot of recordings. Somebody was filming when you guys were in the studio. I think it was your brother on drums, maybe. Yep. It's just your writing is beautiful, man. It's just it's just great, man. Well, I felt it was really reflective of your persona, if you want to call it that. 2018, you put out 2 records. That's pretty ambitious, man. What made you do that?
It was an accident.
It was a mistake. Charles Bukowski.
It was a happy accident. Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I'm looking at the Bukowski thing in the background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I just read this thing about him about the 9 to 5, how we got to issue the 9 to 5. And if you don't change it up, if you don't try stuff, you just do the thing over and over, you become a modern day slave, right?
Yeah. That's why that line it's from this first, it was a mistake. That's the opening of his first novel, Post Office. It was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah. In fact, I turned my son on to him a while back. My son's older now. He's 29, but about 10 years ago, I turned him on to it. I love his writing. So
me too.
Very, very visceral, very economical, very visceral.
Yeah, it's true. I learned a lot for better and worse from reading some of those books.
Oh, yeah. It's great stuff, man.
Okay. This is harrowing, but I like it. I can't put it down.
All right. So it was a mistake. Go ahead.
It was a mistake. It was an accident. So, Connection was that was my intentional record. But then really the Cosmic Christmas one was, I had just got a pair of new speakers and I wanted to try them out and see if I was going to keep them.
Okay.
And so I wanted to do something low pressure.
Like studio monitor speakers you're talking about? Okay.
I got these PMC 226s, which were expensive. And I was like, I don't know. My wife's like, you really need to spend that much on speakers? I'm like, yeah, and I'll show you. But, you know, but so it's like, we did something. I was like, but hold on, maybe, I don't know if they're really right for me too. So we did this record, and it was like a good way to experiment with the low pressure situation. And
so the Cosmic Christmas came out of like this experimentation.
Everything does, once again, kind of, you know what I mean? Everything does. I feel like, you know, as a person who has a studio, or a person produces, and I was talking to Ben is really wise to some of this stuff. He was even like, it's important for you to do your own records because it makes you a better producer, because you're going to take more risks with your own stuff and see what flies and what fails, you know?
Yeah, because when you have a client, and I don't care what business you are, that's not when you're taking the risks. Yeah, totally, man. That's very smart.
Or it could be an educated risk, you know, at least.
Yeah, right. It would be. Yeah, you're not going to say, hey, man, I've never done this before. This is totally off the wall. Do it. But you would do that with yourself. Easy.
That's right.
Yeah, very cool. Man, I got to ask you, mentioned your wife tons of times. Is she in music or?
Well, it's funny. On the Christmas record, she's singing one of the songs. She's got the best voice in the house, for sure. But it's just one of her many talents. I mean, she's really a natural talent at a lot of things. Carpentry. She's an artist, you know. She does all this miniature stuff. But she also will not bullshit me when I'm like, hey, tell me about what you think about this mix.
Right.
You know?
Which is good.
And it's really good. And she's just got a natural knack for telling me kind of like, especially vocal levels.
That's good. How long you guys been together?
We met in 2000, and like, you know, we dated on and off, and now we're, you know, so we've been together for a long time. We've been
19 years. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's nice.
Thank you.
Very cool. Are you working on anything now that you're excited about besides your 90% done instrumental record?
That's exciting, but I am really excited about, I've just been in this beautiful flow of good vibrations of music lately, man. I got to talk about it because I'm working on this record with a girl named Gillette Johnson. And I don't know if people know about her, but man, she is a force. She is a real force. And she's really like one of these, lately I've been involved with like a lot of female musical geniuses. And there's been a trifecta. So I'm working with Gillette, who's, you know, bona fide. I don't know how you qualify or quantify it, but I think she's a musical genius. And then there's another woman named Sarah Edmonds, who's a Seattle person. And her handle is Larson Gardens. That's her like band name. And we're working on a record together. And she's, like I said, another super musical genius girl, in the spirit of like, I don't know, both these ladies are kind of channeling like some stuff from Joni Mitchell, The Pretenders, you know, just really badass stuff. And Sarah's like a really great nylon string player. Whereas Gillette, her muse is piano. And then there's another woman I had the pleasure of working with recently. Now, those are two records I'm working on. Another record I'm working on, and I was lucky to play guitar on it, is a woman named Allie Russell. And she's the one half of the band Birds of Chicago. And my friend, and you know, you have these friends, mentors, whatever you want to call them, mutual mentorship. Dan Knobler, who's just an amazing guitar hero of mine. I mean, he's like a guitar hero to me. He's producing that record. And we had a magical time doing that. So there's all these things in the works that are going to be kind of making themselves known in 2020 that I'm excited about.
Awesome. You know? You're producing those first two with Gillette and Sarah, and then the with Ali you played on it and co-produced, or?
Let me give you the rundown.
Yeah, man. Give me the rundown. Dude, I love the New York. I love let me give you the rundown.
Look at that. I got A.
Yeah, you got
A. The real thing is B. On Sarah is my friend Jen Gunderman, who's the keyboard player with Sheryl Crow. She's producing Sarah's record. And I've been, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm engineering, I'm playing on it, you know, I'm mixing it. whatever. We're all wearing hats, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
On Ali's record, my friend Dan Nobler's producing. And ironically enough, Dan, as we all wear hats, Dan Nobler engineered the other two records.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
It's incestuous.
It is very incestuous. Yeah. It's a small industry when it comes
Yeah.
down to it. It's not as big as people seem to think.
And it's also cool and fun. You take a guy like Dan Nobler, who I can't recommend highly enough as a guy to interview, because I'm a fan of his guitar playing, but he's also happy to be in the engineer's seat sometimes and letting me play guitar. And I'm thinking like, but for whatever reason, I don't feel ashamed or embarrassed in front of him, because he's got such a good energy about him, egoless energy.
Yeah.
You know, they say, how many guitar players it take to turn in screw in a light bulb? You know, all that stuff we all heard. Well, it takes one to screw it in. 9 guitar players say they could do it better. You know, I don't know if you remember that one.
No, that one I didn't know. That's a new one. I've been really lucky. Like we talked before, I've had a small handful of guys that I consider like a bit of an ego, but everybody's been so cool. And of course, like everybody, you know, on an interview, I get the best of everybody. You know, fortunately,
that's true.
You know, it'd be hard for someone to say, "Hey, I'm going to be a real asshole for this interview." I mean, that just wouldn't make any sense, you know. Which I'm okay with, because you know I'm 56. I've had like 54 years of assholes, so I figured it's my time. I'm good, whether it's real or not. I'm happy with good vibes. It doesn't matter, man.
Well, it probably comes from, I don't know if you guys grew up this way, but the whole battle of bands when you're a teenager, you know what I mean? It's like you still have that energy, but nobody really has that energy anymore. It's just something you had as a kid.
And what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, okay, you know, you can do dick measuring, but like, and like, what goes next? You know, okay, like who's going to vote here? You know, where's you know, what magazine is going to tell everybody about this? You know?
Totally. Well, even like case in point, I'm listening to Brian Sutton's interview, and he's talking about he was talking about the Darwinism culture of session players in Nashville. And, you know, I could say, well, what is the Darwinism? It's probably like who's working is because who has the right ego in a way, right? It's like, you know.
Right. Who are the easiest guys to work with?
Totally.
Yeah,
I remember there's a guy in Nashville, Tommy Womack, great writer, but also great prose writer.
Was he also in Muscle Shoals?
He was with Will Kimbrough. I don't know if you know Will.
Yeah, I had Will on the show. Yeah, another good songwriter. Yeah.
That's right. So they had a band, Government Cheese.
Okay.
And, anyway, he's a great prose writer too, but he wrote an op-ed for, I think it was the either Nashville Scene or the Tennessean about 5 years ago called The Art of the Hang. It was all about kind of like, without being too pithy, he basically schooled a lot of these newcomers in Nashville. Like, hey, guess what? 90% of this thing is about the hang.
Yes, everybody tells me that.
Yeah. There's so many people with talent, right? But if you think you're, you know, if you think you're too good or too, you know, if you're full of it, nobody's going to really want to be in the room with you, you know?
By the way, in that interview, Brian recommends a book, something about tennis, but it's about mindset. It's a really good book if you get through that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to revisit that.
Yeah.
If anybody recommends, I want to read, so maybe I'll go to my fingers.
You grew up in Rahway. What was your childhood like? Sounds pretty animated and pretty fun.
Like I said, my childhood was all about, you know, sausage, mozzarella. I mean, you know, like all the stuff. Like my dad had an Italian store. It was family. It was my grandmother, my aunts, and everybody says, "Well, did you guys learn Italian?" No, because everybody used to yell, "English, my English," you know. They didn't really want anybody speaking Italian, probably. And I talked to other people. They said everybody was trying to simulate, so they were saying, "Don't speak Italian," you know.
Yeah.
But that's how we grew up. We grew up making food, and that's why all my analogies are food-based. You know, it was really nice. It was very busy, and it probably created some kind of proletariat work ethic in me that I still can't shake. You know,
man, that's you know, yeah.
At the same time, sometimes you got to take a break. You know,
somebody was telling me many years ago that he read I don't know if this is true, but he read that the best people to hire are people who worked in their family business for that reason. Because you got a family business, man. You got to work.
Totally.
You got to work, man. There's no dicking around.
That's right. And it's like, if you're trying to take a little time for, it's like, if, you know, the whole thing, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Yeah. I like that. Joe, you're like a fountain of witticisms here. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean, bitches. I'm writing that down. I could say that with my kids. They're all older, but still.
It still applies.
Yeah, I just like that as a quote. All righty, thanks. Your brother Mark is a drummer, as you mentioned. Do you have any other siblings? Are they in music?
We have a sister, Carrie.
Is she in music?
Carrie is, you know, she's done a lot of musical stuff when she was younger, musical theater, but she really got into doing more of the voiceover scene. And so, you know, she was a character on a animated show called Veggie Tales for a while. She was the carrot.
Holy shit! I know that show.
Yeah. So she's done that. And she's done some books on tape, and you know, she said, "Would you help me with this book on tape thing?" And you know, I said, "What do you got?" She's like, I said, she's got Audacity on her computer. I said, I can't help you. You got to get Pro Tools. Then I'll help you. You know, but man, you talk about editing, trying to edit breaths out of a.
Oh yeah, it's a million. Yeah.
Your life.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We do no editing on this show. That's why. None. Zero.
All natural.
No, this is a fly on the wall thing. I wouldn't have gotten one episode out, let alone 600. You out of your mind. That's cool. So she does voiceover work. Isn't that funny though? Can you imagine her resume? Carrot, comma veggie.
Totally.
That's really cute. Did you know early on that you were going to do this professionally?
I remember the day I realized I was in college. I went to college in Pennsylvania. And right away,
where'd you go to school?
I went to a school called Elizabethtown College, and it's in Amish country. You know, it's beautiful.
Lancaster, that is beautiful, man.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Right near there.
It's really cool there, man.
I met one of my confidants, and still one of my main sort of collaborators. This guy named Steve Ward, who's, like I said, I throw the term musical genius around a little bit. I think this guy's a bona fide musical genius as well. And he and I have been thick as thieves forever. We learned on the 4-track together, all that stuff. And basically, we would take all our spare time. And, you know, Craig, coming from the Italian deli, where it was like all your spare time was spent working, in college, even though I was afraid I was going to have to spend so much time going to class and study, turned out I had just way more free time than I ever did. It was the first time I had free time in my life. So we put that on to the music.
Did you feel weird about that?
Of course. I felt like a guilty. I was like, what do I have? All this time to do something? I don't have it, you know, I can't, I'm not helping the family business, right?
Yeah.
Stealing away. You're already stealing the key from the mother's pillow, like the Iron John myth. Right? And it's like, I'm in there, like just playing around the 4-track and experimenting with all the stuff. And it was fantastic. It was just heaven on earth. And so I was like, this is what I want to do.
You know? That's cool. Dude, so you really followed your dreams.
I guess so, you know?
Yeah.
I like a lot of the dudes you talk to. I mean, you look at the list of all these famous guys and you wonder, well, you guys are all household names. What did you do? You took a risk at some point and said, I'm going to do this for professional reasons. And everybody looks at you like crazy. How are you going to do that? You know?
It's exactly what happened with almost everybody. Yeah. What prompted you to move to Nashville originally?
So my brother and I, you know, we had done a record in 93 rather. We'd done a record in 93 with my buddy Steve, who I'm talking about, ironically enough, in his apartment in Lancaster.
That's wild.
College. You know, he moved to Lancaster. So my brother and I went with him. We had the Mackeys, the ADATs, you know, like everybody had. And so we did this record. We banged out a record. And we sent it around to a few people. And it was a real quirky record. It was super like weirdo, quirky, like folk meets country meets power pop, whatever. And one of these dudes, we sent it to this guy from a friend of a friend. His name was Rick Clark. He was a Memphis guy. He was doing a lot of music journalism, and he had written the liner notes to Big Star's third album. We were
Okay.
huge fans of Big Star. So we sent it to him. He fell in love with this stuff. He's like, guys, I want to meet you. I want, And so we said, well, we're interested in coming down there because between you and me, we knew if we didn't get out of Jersey, we would be, or New York. My dad's like, why don't you go to New York? Because I know what's going to happen. We're going to spend weekends working for the catering, doing catering.
You'll never get launched, man.
Yeah. So we kind of wanted to move a little bit away just to get out of that thing, just to have a new life,
Again, really smart self-care, man.
It's hard to do and it's sad and all that.
But you did it. Really, a lot of credit to you there, man. You made some very good decisions.
Thank you. And but it's like you said, it's difficult to know, and it was very helpful to have my brother and I, and it's part of the reason we have such a strong bond is because we both were aware of this stuff together at the same time. Support system, So we come down here and we sort of fell in love with Nashville. He was a Memphis guy, but we fell in love with Nashville. Nashville has a way of seducing people when you come visit. And it's a
great place, man. It's so nice.
This is a different town back then too, Craig. This is 1993. We're visiting. And we see this guy named Brad Jones who ended up producing another record. We see him play a show and it's like, holy shit, this is unbelievable.
The talent pool, isn't it?
Band out there. And with another guy we know, Ross Rice, who's played with Frampton, all these other guys. These guys are playing this rock show, and it's like it's melodic, it's Beatlesque, it's power pop, it's like the Zombies, it's like all this stuff we love. And at the time in New York, it was really like very aggressive. Everything was like rap and metal, really hardcore.
In the 90s?
Era amps, yeah. Remember, like like everything. And I was like, man, I want to learn how to play weirdo country Bill Frisell. I don't know what I was thinking,
Yeah.
It was just I had this idea in mind, like super clean, telly, whatever, birdsy kind of thing. I was in my mind meets sort of some of this like power pop, blah blah blah. And so this is the kind of stuff we saw when we visited here. Next thing you know, we find out Brad plays a show once every 7 years. And so I felt like we got seduced,
Right.
It was like sports bar blues every weekend. There was nothing going on. But it was so boring that it made us just be able to woodshed. It was cheap to live here.
Yeah.
Boring. And we were able to spend 3 days waiting tables and 4 days making music.
That's great. By the way, your backdrop there, that is one of the nicest settings I've seen. It's so especially because it's a little chilly out. That's like looks like the best place to be in the winter right there, man. I'm serious. Like right in front of the fireplace. Very very, very warm.
Oh, thanks, man.
And then so you moved here. Was there a big transition? Because back then you were like a Yankee. It's not like it is now in Nashville.
Yeah. And my dad thought we couldn't get anything down here. I'll mail you down pepperoni. I'll mail you down broccoli. I got a case of Jersey tomatoes coming down. Like everything was like, he thought we were in the Wild West. It was like, anything. There's not the grocery stores.
Dad, they got a grocery store.
Like you can't. So it was funny, but it was like that. You know what I mean? Now you get arugula on every corner. It's like avocado toast. Everything's so fancy now.
Yeah, it is.
But it was a little bit like that, and it was different, and but everybody was pretty friendly. You know what I mean? And everybody was really. And it was so mellow, man. There was no traffic. It was a different time.
Yeah.
But nobody really gave us a hard time about the Yankee thing. I didn't even know. I was like, or carpetbagger. Like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, people would joke about it, but I don't know.
But you're easy to get along with. I'm sure were you always you're like a very, what's it called? Like an amiable, like you don't seem to be the guy that gets pissed off very much or pisses other people off very much.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm still human. I mean, and who knows, like, it takes a while to burn off all that male ego and testosterone. Jersey guys coming down here, like my brother's 22, I'm 24, and but we're tempering each other, because we're together.
Yeah.
So we kept each other out of trouble.
That's good.
Yeah.
What were some of the low points, Joe, or dark periods you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
Well, it was funny. Like, I was on the road with KD. And I got real sick, and being sick on the road is like, holy shit, man. It's not like this isn't took the first round of the Z-Pack, thought, man, by the second day, take a Z-Pack, second or third day, you start to feel normal. And I was like, uh-oh, I'm not feeling better. Take another round of antibiotics and steroids, still not feeling better. Meanwhile, I'm producing Ben Folds on my time off. I'm finishing that record. I'm out with her. We're hustling on the road, going to several continents, and I'm not getting better. I'm not getting better. Turns out I get this weird sinus thing where there's a mass in my head. They got to go and take it out with surgery. So it was a heavy time, right?
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was a pretty heavy point for me. And, I remember the day we went to, because it was kind of the thing where it was just.
So where did you get this diagnosed? What country were you when you get this diagnosed?
I was home.
Oh, you were home.
I went home for a 2-week break. And I took 4 Advil because my doctor said, if you got pain, I had eye pain. He's like, take 4 Advil. I took 4 Advil. My wife and I are eating lunch like 25, 30 minutes later. She's like, I said, my headache is still like 9 out of 10. She's after 4 Advil. She's like, you're an idiot. We're going to the emergency room. So we went. This is after this is going on 12 weeks. And I had taken so many antibiotics and just being on the road and also feeling horrible, But you start to get, they talk about it like I forget what they call it, like a cowboy syndrome, where it's like the new normal is like you just feel shittier and shittier.
Humans, we are very adaptable, man.
Right.
Very adaptable. Yeah. People are that's why those guys survive sitting underground in war in a little cage for 3 years, it's very adaptable.
Totally. So, here I am, like, go to the hospital. You got a sinus infection. Good luck. Wait over here for 4 hours. But since you're complaining of eye pain, we're going to get to a CAT scan. The minute they get the CAT scan back, everything gets dramatic. Okay, sir, we have to admit you right away. Where do you work? And tell them you're not going to be coming in for a little while. And then they said, you have to meet with the ENT and the brain surgeon, all this stuff. Your CAT scan is not normal. So the guy comes down. It's Sunday night at the emergency room, and he's like, "Your CAT scan is not normal. We don't want to give you false hope. This could be something very bad." And
holy shit! And your wife's probably freaking out.
Your skull bone, all this stuff. I'm like, what? I knew I was in pain, and it was pretty heavy. But it turned out to be like, of all that, the best case of a bad scenario, right?
Yeah.
Long story short, but it was kind of like, I was always like. How does it work when they give you really horrible news at the hospital? Do they sugarcoat it? What's the bedside manner? I'm realizing, no, it sucks, man.
Yeah.
They say,
wow.
We don't want to give you false hope. This could be a number of things very bad. I'm like, that's how you're going to tell me? Anyway.
So it turned out to be a non-cancerous tumor that just came up? Was it in your brain or was it in your sinuses above?
It was underneath. It was behind my eye, and it broke the bones that connect the eye to the nose. You know what I mean? Those were the bones that were in there.
Oh, crap. So it's pretty big mass to do that.
Yeah, man. It looked like the size of a little plum, on the CAT scan.
Holy crap.
And I was just walking around with that thing for, you're on the road. The show must go on, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like,
oh my God. So how long? Yeah, man, in a bad deck of cards, it sounds like you pulled the best ones that are available there.
Oh, yeah.
How long was the recovery on that?
Man, he's like, I'm not going to lie, I beat you up pretty bad in there. Because he's like, we couldn't tell what was you or what was the mass, it was so inflamed. And it was about 5 or 6 months, of just where it didn't hurt to put a t-shirt over your head kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. So were you bedridden the whole time?
I stayed in bed for a month. On a wedge pillow, it had to be raised up. And then KD said, look, I had to find a replacement for the KD tour. I'm going to name check another great guitar player from Nashville, Joe McMahon. I don't know if you know about Joe.
I've heard him a bunch of times. I've never spoken with him.
Man, he's a cool cat and a gentleman and a fantastic player. He went out and, helped, when I was recovering, he took over for me. And so then Katy said, look, Joe, I had about a month to rest. She said, why don't you come finish this? We're going to do one more tour. It's going to be like a month long. We're going to go from the West Coast of Canada to Montreal, starting in Victoria. You got to come out because that's it. Once I finish this run, we're never doing this show again. This is it for this record. We're doing this ends the cycle. I said, I got to do it. She's like, we started together. We got to finish it together.
That was nice.
And honestly, it was a little bit humbling because I was like, this recovery is a little more dramatic than I thought it would be. Just, I think there's humility in seeing your limits, where it's like, you're not telling other people about this at the time, but you're kind of suffering a little bit silently, like, shit, I don't feel so great yet. This is going to be a little longer, a little more humble of a recovery thing. Thankfully, nowadays, I feel so much better. And honestly, I had sinus stuff my whole life. I think this guy gave me a clean slate for the second half of life in a way.
Like a reprieve. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Knock on wood, it just needed to happen.
Yeah, man.
Our mutual friend, Webb Wilder, he was the confidant, because Webb has had horrible shit go down. And because he's a little older, he had stuff go down where the surgery was way more insane the way they used to have to do it. So I was lucky in that regard too.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. Glad that all worked out for you. Wow. That's pretty, I'm sure your wife was shitting.
She was, my wife plays it cool, but she acted like no big deal. You lose an eye. We got a friend with one eye. Get over it. We had a buddy who functions very well with one eye. And she's like, and because he's like, you might lose, this could happen. You might go blind. Don't panic. All this shit. I'm like, don't.
You might go blind. Don't panic.
Like, I'm the guy that blindness that caused from this surgery, from mistake. He's like, don't panic.
Wow.
So,
wow, man. I'm glad that all worked out for you.
Oh man, these are the things that and honestly, there's stuff that you digest from these experiences that isn't instant.
Yes.
It's over time where you start to become grateful, because you're like, well, hold on. If I have time after this, what am I going to do at that time?
So how did you change after that?
I did give myself a break. Because and this is something that probably years of therapy are going to help with, is finding, and reminds me of Brian Sutton, because even though I joke around a lot and I have a light heart, finding the balance between excellence and perfection, right? You're never going to attain perfection. And I'm a secret perfectionist, even though I joke around about shit. But I torture myself like everybody else does in this business. And so it's like, but finding excellence and knowing where that ends, and knowing not to go into the perfectionist zone, because then you just become boring and miserable and you can't do anything. You can't finish anything.
Yes.
I think what it was for me was, don't be so hard on yourself. Let things happen. Let good things happen. Put some music out, even if it's raw, even if it has human error in it. Let it go,
Man, I totally agree with that. I used to be a perfectionist, and when I made a conscious decision to stop, honestly, it was like a 1,000,000-pound weight lifted off me. It was.
That's an experience I recently had that changed my life for better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of this, because it was another dodging of a bullet. So I had, we got this riding mower. It's an old shit show of a mower. It's an old Sears Craftsman, but it's on its last leg forever, but the thing still works, And all of a sudden it starts, it's always something with this thing. And I look down and I see this rubber flap to my right. So like a 42-inch blade underneath, you sit down and ride it like a little tractor. And I'm looking down, and this flap thing is flapping all over the place. I'm like, that doesn't look right. So I take my hand and I go down and I'm pushing it down. Like, why isn't this thing working right? I take one more loop around the yard. 10 minutes later, I look down and the rubber flap is missing. And I see through that, where the rubber flap was, there's no metal there. So
it's like the blade under the.
It is right there spinning like 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? I turn the thing off and I said, I can't believe I just had my hand right there. This thing, then what it was this thing was ready to pop off. And, my wife had rigged it up with a pencil or something, paper clip, to make it stay. And this thing, we were duct taping it to work, for duct taping a WD-40 in for years to get our lawn done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyhow, I looked and I took all my shit. I had the mask, because I got the sinus. I got the mask. I look like Walter White when I'm mowing the lawn. I got the hat. I got the glasses, the mask. I took it all off and I sat down, and I had a moment of like, I had a feeling like, what if this could have been my ass right here? This could have been the end of everything. And I had this experience as if I was praying to God, like, God, if you could make this not happen, I would do anything. And the one thing I thought, because it didn't happen, but I was imagining what if it did? And I thought, you know, it's very cosmic what I'm talking about, kind of like almost imagining the afterwards. But I was thought, if you could make this not happen, I will never be mean to myself about my guitar playing ever again. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll never be mean what I do with my hands. I'll never say, you're an idiot for doing that. Or that was stupid. That's dumb that you just did. I'm never going to say that internal language to myself.
So something about that experience triggered something in you to become more forgiving with yourself.
Exactly.
You know what? I'm a believer that the universe is at times trying to teach us things. And sometimes you get a message and you ignore it. And that message is repeated a little louder.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you continue ignoring it, it's repeated louder. And there's a certain point where there's a serious consequence. So I'm always trying to listen for shit like that, man. So I'm happy that, huh? What's,
wow.
This is what?
Message.
Yeah, it's a very loud, yeah.
It made me sit down, turn the thing off and go, holy shit here, you know? And, you know, it was like, I just had no idea what I was doing. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was under there. I just thought, this thing's annoying me. And look at it. It's flapping all over the place. Let me push it. Let me push it back into place. I didn't know why that flap was there. And I thought, fuck, you know? How could I have ever been like, you know, when you have a gift or whatever, you say a gift, it sounds, I'm not talking about ego. I'm not talking about.
No, your musical gift. It's a gift.
Gift.
Yeah, it's a gift. It's, yeah.
And judge it harshly or say, I'm not cool enough or I'm not good enough. I'll never be this or I'll never be that. It's so horrible to do that to yourself.
It is.
It's something unique to offer. And it's your passion. What we were talking about before, it's not discipline for me. It's joy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So maybe that was like a message to remember that this is joy. Don't fuck it up by thinking about, you know, over judging it. I know, man, I used to be brutal with myself and I had a bunch of shit happen and I'm like, that was one of the things that came out of that is like, I'm never going to do that again. And I've been pretty good. I really haven't. I don't like, there's tons of stuff about this show, for example, that's not perfect. I'm good with it.
Would you feel willing to share that with me or is that?
Yeah. Well, what happened was this was in 2009. I had like, I can't share everything because it has to do some other people, but the recession hit. My business took a crap. I'd been making great money. There was some real estate I shouldn't have bought. We lost a bunch of money on that. I had some really dangerous family stuff go on, and my brother committed suicide. And I had been working so hard that, man, I was probably on the verge of stroking out. So when all this shit happened, I was like, I'm the kind of person when things happen, I do two things. One is I try to see what was my role in this, because I don't like feeling like a victim. And if I find my role, then I can say, okay, I own some of this. I'm not comfortable thinking, oh, poor me. Why did this? I don't like that. I'm uncomfortable. I'd rather take responsibility for something, because then I say, okay, mistake made, forgive myself. Maybe not then, but get to the point of forgiveness and then, you know, move on. Don't make the mistake again. But the other thing I say is, okay, what can I learn from this? And when all this shit happened, the things I realized, a few of them, number one, I will not participate in stress in my life. If things happen to me, fine, but I am no longer going to worry. I am going to really try hard to be in the moment. And part of that was cutting myself slack. Just relax. You know, your work ethic is great. If you're doing it, it's going to be good. Good is good enough. You don't have to beat yourself. You know, between 95 and 100%, only you're noticing the difference of that. Nobody else gives a shit. You know, it's the truth. And so that has been helpful for me. I mean, more helpful than anything of just like, you know, relaxing, man, doing things, having fun, becoming happy. You know, at the end of every show, I always say happiness is a choice. Choose wisely. I fucking say that to remind myself. So I decided, I said, I got to start focusing on my happiness, because all this shit I'm a pretty strong person, but all this shit came down on me really heavy. And then the other thing was I needed to find a passion and do that as a career. So I was running a marketing company, which I still do, like it, enjoy it. I don't wake up every day like you do. And I wanted to, and I didn't know what that was. And it took me 2009. I've been doing this show 2 years. So it took me 8 years to find something I wake up every day loving, which is being involved in music and talking to fucking cool musicians. I mean, for me, I'd never be a musician, but I love the vibe of, this is a great community. As you know, it's a wonderful community. And so, and then just doing a lot of work and self-help stuff and just going easier on myself. And that was my lesson in all that. Just be happy, man. Do shit that makes you happy. And I didn't know what that was. And then, started playing guitar 4 years ago. And it just grew from there. So, and I learned, like I said, that is helped by talking with you guys every day. Cause I'm like, oh my God, these guys are so happy. Why would you not want to be happy? And it's just, you don't, why would anybody would not want to be happy? It's a choice. You can choose to be happy or not.
I know, but you're right. Sometimes it takes you to have to go all the way to the darkness to understand it. Allah, like with your thing, all the way to this dark door you got to open and go through. Yeah. And the same thing with me with this mower thing, and even like being like
with the surgery.
Yeah, just being thankful for have a normal thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Don't worry about, the extra hour you didn't spend in the studio, or in my case, just sitting on my desk working something out. Just do the best you can and then go. Good is good enough. And look, you have a good work ethic. You're talented. Good really is good enough.
Yeah.
And I learned, don't judge me any harsher. I would cut someone else slack.
Right. There you go.
And I started thinking like that. And playing guitar helped me a lot, to be honest with you, because, when you play guitar, any instrument, you can't think, you got to be right there. You can't think about, oh, I got this meeting on Thursday, or man, someone said something last week I was really upset with. If you're not right there, you're wasting your time. The whole point, you can't express yourself. And I became so enthralled with that. It allowed me to sort of, I said, man, I got to do this with everything. I'm just going to be in the moment.
Yeah. Well, think about it this way. You're right. And what I'm hearing you saying, Craig, is like, thankfully we have this experience, right? It is like music is inherently spiritual because of that.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you're not on bar 52, beat 2 with everybody else, guess what? You're not, then you're either not getting the call back, and that's like one of the worst, one of the least things that could happen. But you're just not even, like they said, music is not to get to the end of the piece, right? The whole adage, it's like you're in the piece, that the goal is not to be the quickest one getting to the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was my take, and I'm sure there'll be more lessons for me, as there are for all of us.
Totally.
Thanks for sharing all that. I'm really glad that all worked out for you, especially your health scare, man.
Well, likewise.
Most of the time I want to talk about gear for a little bit. Most of the time you're playing acoustic now, as you said, but I've also seen you very competently playing electric. So I was curious, like, what are your go-to guitars right now for both, if you want?
I've always been sort of historically a Tele guy, and not in like the Nashville sense of the word, but more like just because it seems like such a versatile thing. It's sort of like a minivan. You could drive it fast.
Everybody says that about everybody that's a Tele guy says that. If you're not a Tele guy, you don't understand, because like I'm not a Tele guy, I don't understand it, but everybody says that.
It's a Swiss Army knife, You do the super bright thing. I have a humbucker in my new Tele, which I don't have a coil tap on it. So it's in the neck position. So I can get a real buttery, kind of almost like a Les Paul tone, or just switch it up to the normal Tele back pickup zone.
Is that a Fender Tele, or is it like another brand?
You know what? I'll be honest. It's a Fender custom shop Relic.
Nice. Wow.
And, you know, you feel a little bit like, am I being punked right now buying this thing? Like, you know, because it's all beat up or whatever. But man, it's a
No, they look great.
It's so great.
They
And
look great, man.
yeah, it's a fantastic little guitar, you know.
Good for you. You're a professional, man. You got to buy good tools, man.
It's true.
What's number two?
Number two,
You could play that part when you're talking about it with your wife. See, honey, look, even this guy, he talks to all these guitar players. He knows.
like for me, number two. Well, in the studio, number two is definitely this Harmony Meteor, which the gold.
Now, what is that? Oh, a Meteor.
The Meteor is like it's got 2 gold foil pickups, volume and tone for each, and it sort of looks, I don't know, like a little bit of almost like the 335, but it's fully hollow. So,
okay, but the same as the same pickups as the Stratotone.
I believe so.
Yeah, those gold foil.
But man, those gold foils just make everything you do sound more important. I don't know how else to describe it. Everything's
add that to my list.
I love gold. I want to put gold foils in everything.
Yeah, I love them. That's my next guitar I'm looking to buy is a Stratotone, but I've never heard of a Meteor. I'm going to add that to my reverb watch list.
Yeah, check it out. And I guess the difference between the Meteor and the Rocket, and I'm saying this as a novice because I don't know, but I think the Rocket is the one with the Bigsby, but the Meteor just has a floating bridge or whatever.
And it's fully hollow.
Fully hollow, as far as I know, because
it'll get feedback on that.
Oh yeah. It'll get away from you. Right. You're playing it through an amp on stage, so that's either fun or treacherous, however you want to.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Is there a number?
Studio guitar, man.
Great. What?
Studio guitar.
What is there a number 3?
Well, lately I've been really rediscovering my affinity for my Stratocaster, which is weird. They're like wily little beasts, and they're the opposite of the Telecaster. Like
what way?
It's like if they were brothers, they'd be like one guy would be a stockbroker, the other guy would be a priest. And they're like totally different,
Joe Pisapia, hold on, Mr. Analogy.
They're like the opposites,
Yeah, that's funny.
And because the Strat's like, here's my analogy of Strat. Strat is concave, the Telly's convex. Telly points at you, and the Strat sucks back. It's hollow.
Interesting.
Compressed. When you strum a chord on its Strat, go sucks in, and the Telly's a bam, like slices your face off. I don't know.
What kind of Strat do you have?
I have a made in Japan 60s reissue.
Nice.
It's got a rosewood neck. It looks just like your Strat in the background. It's white with a rosewood.
The cream. Yeah, that's I love that guitar.
But lately I fell in love. I've got a new love affair going with and I've wanted one for a while because my first guitar when I was 13 was a Les Paul Custom. I had a Les Paul Custom when I was 13.
That's a pretty good first guitar, Joe.
Let me tell you something. You wouldn't believe the amount of conversations I had with my dad to tell him how I deserve this guitar. I'm not going to give this up. It's not going to end up like Legos all over the floor. This is going to be a real thing I'm going to commit to, And I really wanted it. I was serious, But I sold that guitar to buy my Japanese Strat in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
So and it didn't have a Les Paul, but I just got a Les Paul, which I like even better because I wanted a Les Paul for a while. But what I didn't want, because now I'm Uncle Joe, I didn't want the spinal shit. Like I didn't want to compress my spine forever.
9 pounds. You didn't want a 9 pound. Yeah.
So I got a buddy named Nick Beard, and he's a great bass player, and he plays with the Jamestown Revival. And he and I are in the process of trading. I have a Macintosh amp, and he's given me his chambered Les Paul 59 reissue gold top.
Oh, very cool.
It's like it feels like a Tally. It's sprightly.
Yeah, most of the newer ones are chambered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's chambered over there. It's really low.
Oh, it is? Great.
Yeah, it's like a 14 even or something, like 2014 or 15 or something, or 13 maybe. And acoustically, you're still with the Gibson?
Well, I have a lot of acoustics now. My favorite guitar, which I didn't know I was ever going to have as my favorite, I bought a mid-60s D28 Martin. Mm-hmm. And not to name names, Prince Charles said you dropped a name over there. But I did buy it from L.R. Baggs, Lloyd Baggs, luthiered this guitar. It was his guitar.
Oh, that's wild.
And he luthiered to make it. He's like, Joe, I wanted this thing to resonate like a Steinway C. And it sounds like it just is beautiful. He reshaved all the bracing inside and everything. And
wow. So you just happened to buy it at the right place at the right time.
yeah, I said one day, he was like, Joe, would you use my guitar? Because we were doing an L.R. Baggs session, like a video session, a band I was producing. I said, sure, I'd use it. And then I was like, oh man, how much does one of these set one back, Lloyd? And he's like, I can't sell that to you. I'm like, no, I'm just talking about a guitar like this. And he's like, why don't you borrow it? And I was like, I borrowed it, I fell in love with it. And then he decided he would sell it to me because he found, I think he found a D18 he was really fell in love with. That was
okay.
Twice the price of this one.
That's great. So right place, right time.
Totally. I love that. But lately I've been really also into this. I have this old Alvarez nylon string that my friend Steve Ward bequeathed to me that I talked about Steve, who's my colleague.
Right.
And that's really that's the sound of this instrumental record. Yeah.
You should have a contest. Come up with a name for Joe Pisapia's new record.
I have a name I'm working with, but it sounds so cheesy. Like I got to keep working it out. You know, it's hard not to sound.
Dude, I got the name.
What is it?
Lawnmower Man.
I like it.
Yeah, man.
There's something about that. There's something. Remember how we talked about the green light? You told me there's something about that. And you know, part of me thought about. I made this record in the darkest part of the winter, which I kind of like. And there's this whole idea of this season, which I was like, I just looked up on the calendar. You got the equinox, you got the solstice. What happens in between? There's the midpoint of the equinox and the solstice. Or the solstice.
It's like mid to January or something.
The first week of February. It's called the
Imbolc. It's called the what?
Imbolc, which is IMBOLC. Now I have a song in there. The one title is the Imbolc. But I thought about that as a concept for the record because what it is like, it's where the seeds are in the ground and they're sprouting, but you can't see. It's like the most faint hope, the most faint glimmer of hope that you know nature does, but you can't. You have no visual representation of it. Kind of like this, but the word sounds. It's hard to say.
Imbolc, yeah, it is hard to say. You have to explain that on the liner notes, man.
Yeah,
because that is a pretty cool thing, actually.
I think I have the cover design. And it's going to be very pagan and witchy. I don't know why. I'm like
telling you, man, Lawnmower Man. Change your life, man. It's funny. I mentioned Tom Britt. He had his solo record is called Elevator Man. And I said, what made you call that? He goes, when we were kids, they grew up in Iowa, I think, him and Bob. And there was a hotel that they used to go to. They used to ride up and down just to bust this guy's balls. They used to ride up and down, and there was an elevator man there. It's just kind of cute. Do you remember the first album you ever bought?
I remember the first single we ever bought. My brother and I, and we tried to get the Eagles' "Best of My Love."
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, of course.
But we didn't get that. We got the other one. I can't remember the artist. But it goes, oh, dun, dun, you got the best of my love.
Oh, yeah, like the OJs or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we both looked at each other and we're like, this is not what we wanted to buy, but we're like,
oh my God.
You. And so I think there's a metaphor, you know what I mean, for life. Yeah. I think it's like, it's like, hey, that wasn't what we intended, but this is pretty good.
Yeah. That's so funny.
It's like, that is kind of metaphoric for life, I think, in a weird way. Man.
Tell me your top Desert Island discs, top 3, just for today, just for right now.
Just for right now.
Yeah.
I keep saying that. I said it over and over. The Zombies, Odyssey, and Oracle.
Yeah, you have said that over and over. I was wondering if that would come up. Great record, man.
That was my mind. I can't get over it. Because I also talked about it, I'm going to say Katy Lange because it's just such a weird, trippy record. It's got so much world beat. It was so unique the way it made me want to be around pedal steel because of that record. And it's part of the reason I went to Nashville.
Who played pedal steel on there?
Greg Lees.
Okay.
And I play pedal steel now for like over 10 years. I'm still getting started. because this shit's like
That's a
crazy.
tough, yeah.
You know, brain surgeon, you know, you can't just expect to learn it overnight.
Have
But
you played with any of the guys in town?
yes, I have.
Who?
And well, one of my heroes, Al Perkins, played on a few of the things I worked on back in the day.
Oh,
And I got to go on the road with him, and he showed me all this cool stuff. He showed me, like, cause he would bring a lap steel because we were doing European touring, and he would show. I said, "How do you make your lap steel sound like a pedal steel?" I mean, you know. And he was doing all this bending behind the bar and bar slants, and he showed me all that stuff because we had nothing but time over there. You know what I mean?
that's cool.
It was really fun. Yeah. You know, they say don't meet your heroes. I say meet your heroes. They're all awesome. There's one or two.
Sometimes, yeah, it's always going to be an asshole somewhere in there.
Usually there's, you know, most of them are cool. All right, third one, I'm going to say, even though it's hard for me to pick one record, but I'm going to say The Hoople by Mott the Hoople. I don't know what, I think it's their last studio record, but I just love that one. It's spooky to me. It's got so much weird theatrics in it and glam, and yet there's like the singer-songwriter burgeoning quality to it that was hinted at in earlier records, and I just really love that one.
You know, I asked that question pretty much to everybody. I think this is the first time I've heard all three of these groups, although I'm not 100% sure on the Zombies, but definitely the first time Katy Lange's come up, definitely the first time Mott the Hooples come up. Very cool, man. Best decision you ever made, Joe?
Whew.
Besides going to the emergency room.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. Getting married was a pretty good decision. That was pretty. And I remember my friend Audley Freed, you might know about.
Yeah, I know who he is.
And he said to me right after, as soon as I grabbed my first cocktail, he said that's the best decision I ever made.
Oh, very cool.
And I thought, you know what, you're right.
He was talking about himself or you?
He was talking about himself.
That's nice.
He was at my wedding, and I just looked at it, and you know, and I said, you know what, you're right.
Very cool.
It's gonna be the best decision I ever made.
Do you guys have kids?
No, but you know, it's still something that you never know. Because my wife's a little younger, but we're at that point where it's like, holy shit, now or never, baby.
Dude, get a couple of dogs. Let me tell you, it's a lot of work. That sounds horrible, but I've talked to guys. I'm 56, but I've talked to guys that I just turned 56 recently, but I've talked to guys that are like my age and like have a 3-year-old, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, everybody's life's different, right? So his experience at 56 with the 3-year-old is not the same perception as I would have, because I'm done. My youngest is 19, right? I got a granddaughter that's 5, so it's a totally different, thing. But when my kids, I was so happy. I just took parenthood so seriously when my kids were, finally adults. I was like, wow, it's really good. Just a lot of pressure was off, and I'm great. My wife and I have a great thing, so it's like we can have fun now. Not that we kids stopped having fun, but that responsibility wasn't so heavy on me.
Totally. Well, you got to focus completely.
I always took it really seriously, and I was always, not like a helicopter parent, but just always. You got 3 kids, is a lot of work, man. And now it's great. They come over and they on the weekends and have barbecues, and I'm close with all of them, so it's really nice.
That's awesome.
Most important things you've learned about yourself.
Well, we kind of covered a couple of those things.
You're good at analogies.
Good at analogies. So it's like the lawnmower incident. You know what I mean? Like, be kinder to yourself, right? Yeah. Be kinder to yourself. All this stuff we're hinting around, all this codependency and stuff. It's like learning more about boundaries. Those are the big things that I feel it comes with maturity of age. And even like I think being married is like, having another person who's completely different than you, that close in your world. You have to understand and have more compassion for your neighbors, right? It's just something that is a byproduct of learning how to deal with being different than each other. And
that's
also,
good, man.
So those
that's
things.
Good. What do you like? This is a tough question for everybody. What do you like most about yourself?
Lately, I had this experience in 2016 where I went to Europe and I was alone, and I thought, it was the first time I thought this thing. I said, I enjoy myself. It was
Good
the
for
first
you.
time I ever had the perspective of that, because it was the first time I was ever really alone for an extended period of time. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I'm happy that I had that experience. You know what I mean? So I guess I enjoy, I'm trying to think
I
specifically what I
enjoy
enjoy.
myself.
I enjoy
Hey,
myself.
this is not an X-rated show.
But yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I like, uh, I think that I appreciate about myself that I still love and enjoy music more than ever. You know, I
That's
really
really cool.
appreciate that about myself. I didn't expect that to happen.
You still play with your brother?
We just did a tour together.
Oh, he was on the tour. Great.
Yeah. We did a tour as Joe Mark's brother, the three-piece that we haven't played together. Like, we haven't done a tour in 20 years. This is what
That's
I'm
so
talking about.
cool.
Experimental.
How did you get all those gigs booked? And good for you for getting it done.
Because I mastered the internet, Craig. I'll tell you all about it in my pamphlet. If you
Dude.
subscribe $1 a month. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
man. No, you should put something like that together.
You know, it was kind of crazy because I had joined the Gustar guys. They did this festival up in Maine. And we're hanging out in the studio. One of the guys were in town. I said, I want to come to your festival. They're like, you would come? I'm like, sure. They're like, well, why don't we have you play on the Joe stage? We'll do a stage for you and all this stuff.
Oh, so you opened for them in all the festivals.
What I did was, they have a weekend festival. I played in between the acts on a little B stage and just did like a solo acoustic thing. And it was really fun. And all these, I met and reconnected with old people that I knew from, you know, you make friends with these people. You see them like night after night, some of them. So you have all
Sure.
these friends they haven't seen in a while. And then it was new people, you know. So afterwards, I came home and I had my friend Don Piper, who's a great musician in New York, has this, he was doing a songwriting series in the city called the Last Wednesday's Songwriter Series at 2A, which is in the East Village. He asked me, I said, I want to do one of those. He's like, come on, do the one on October 30th. So I'm telling my wife, I'm like, what do? Do I fly up using miles? She's like, you've been talking about doing house concerts forever. Why don't you put a call out, see if anybody wants to do a house concert?
Nice.
So I put a thing on the internet. And 2 hours later, I had so many requests. I had 20 cities that wanted to host something.
Dude, see, you just put it out there, man.
Put it out there. And so I said, shit, since there's so much interest, let's see if I can get enough interest to bring, and I was with my brother at the time. My brother and I were having drum spa day in the studio. And he was like, we got to fix this kick drum. We got to get new spurs. We got to get new heads on this. We're having drum spa day, you know? So I'm like, hey, are you available during this time? Just in case this thing happens to be more interest in a solo thing. Yeah, I'm available. I talked to our guy Hags, who we've been playing with for years. Because Hags has been playing with the Blues Brothers lately. He's like basically Duck Dunn now, right? So I'm like, Hags, are you available? Thinking, there's no way Hags. Yeah, I'm available. I said, well, let me see if I get enough interest to do this thing as a three-piece. And we did it.
So you had all those dates as a three-piece.
Yeah, and we went into people's houses with a full PA, full drum kit. I had a little stereo rig, bass amp, and it was like we were in people's living rooms doing the show like that.
Awesome.
It was amazing. It was so cool. Meanwhile, people are sitting 5 feet in front of you. So it's like, it feels like you're just having I don't know, it's like ultimate communion of music. It was really cool, man.
And then you did your buddy's thing at Studio A in the city?
We did that one at 2A. We did a couple club gigs.
That's awesome, man.
It was house concerts, you know?
Good for you, man. See, put shit out there.
Yeah.
Most exciting experience you've had or best thing that ever happened to you?
Whew. You know, that's a tough one. But I'll just pick one that just occurred to me.
Yeah.
I remember like when we had finished the Katy Lange record, we did this listening party in Los Angeles, and I forget the name of the studio, and I wish I could say it because it was fucking awesome, the studio. And it was in this old, man, I think it's Ocean something, but it's not Ocean Way, it's something else. But so we're at the studio, and we're in the control room with the badass speakers. They had speakers in the cutting room. We had a taco truck. We were just having a party. It was a small gathering, people from KCRW, people from the label, Loretta Munoz from ASCAP. You know, we're all hanging out, the management, the lawyers, and we're just having a listen down at loud volume. And it felt like, oh man, everything sounded just so good. You know, like when you're like, this sounds good to me. Like after all this time, I still enjoy this record. It was a good moment of like, you know, the celebrating a job well done or whatever. You know, that's another thing. A lot of people don't do that. You know, like celebrate a job well done because you're wincing at things you would rather do better. Fuck that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it feels good to admit, like, this feels good. It's a relief to have done this. And we you know, raising a glass, having a toast, you know? So that was a nice moment. I remember that moment. That was good.
Very nice, man. Most important thing your dad taught you?
Oof. Let me think about that. Well, probably I would say like a work ethic, you know what I mean? And work ethic and also family ethic. You know, one of the things that was like when we were leaving, I know, like, I think the hardest thing for him to see was my brother and I leaving together and and entering a business together. And I think what he really was nervous about, and even seeing his anxiety about this maybe was a lesson, was he didn't want us to screw up our friendship by entering into a musical enterprise together.
Interesting.
And seeing his anxiety in that moment, even though it was painful, you know, and scary, because he didn't want us to screw up our friendship. I think that stuck with both him and me.
Yeah.
You know? That was a big lesson, was like, don't let some bullshit come between your love for each other, no matter what.
Yeah. As a parent, I understand that. I was just talking to Ann the other night, and I was saying our kids are the three of them are really close, and I'm really happy. That was very important to me. So I get that as a dad, man. I get that. How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
You know, the best thing about our mom, I think, and my mom has an advanced sense of humor, you know, and I think like she gave us our lighthearted edge, you know. Her side of the family was always just had a really good sense of humor, you know, and I remember when I was moving to Nashville and I had so much anxiety, and, you know, I had that just nervous, dizzy feeling of like, you know, I was like, am I losing it? You know, you're just in transition. Once you get to where you're going, everything is going to feel a lot better. Just wait for it. And she was right, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that kind of comforting feeling, but also the sense of humor. Those are two great things I got from her.
Very nice, man. Do you have any hobbies outside of music?
You know, I love to cook, man. I love to cook. I paint sometimes. I love to paint.
Did you paint that little painting up above your fireplace there?
I didn't do that one.
It's
no.
Nice.
I did this one. I'll show you this one. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, man. What a beautiful place, man. I love all that wood. Yeah, that is really nice, man.
Shit, I can't.
No, I see it. Looks great.
Yeah. But anyway. But
okay, you blended all those colors in there, man.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it looks cool.
I love
cooking, painting.
Yeah.
Booking gigs.
I hate booking gigs.
Master of the internet. What's the favorite place you traveled? You've been all over.
Man, I one of these, I stumbled on this destination by accident. You know, I was just killing time. I was going between one city in Italy, and I had to go to Switzerland near Davos, and for the next show, and I just peeled off and went to the peninsula where Bellagio is, at the end of this peninsula on Lake Como. But I didn't go all the way to Bellagio. I did go all the way, and the hotels were like 500 euro a night. And I just came back and I went up the hill, up the mountain. I found this hotel for 30 euros a night. And it was, I don't even know what town it was in, but it was on that peninsula in Lake Como. And I thought, this is the coolest place to hang out for a couple of days. And I always wanted to go back there, you know?
Everybody I know that's been to Italy loves Lake Como, man.
It's just, it's another world. You can't even imagine. And when I went to bed, it was rainy, you know? It was the spring. It was like April, late April. So I went to bed, it's raining. I wake up in the morning and all the mountains around me are are covered in snow. And
Wow.
it's just like, wow, yeah, it was so cool, man.
Do they speak English there? Or is there, because I know Italy's one of those countries where they don't speak English a lot, do they?
No, it's
Yeah.
all improvised. You got to just, I had a little Google machine on my phone, which
Okay.
is probably hilarious to both parties, the way it
Yeah.
gets. But you can kind of get by, you know what I mean? You sit there and you leave it on the table between you, and you're like, oh.
Oh my God. Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Well, some of that, like even when I was splitting up, getting out of Gustar, that was a tough decision. You know what I mean? It wasn't maybe it wasn't the toughest, but it just occurred to me as one moment of that was hard. And like I said before, it was hard to find that one time where, like, yeah, these guys are my musical brothers, friends for life kind of thing. I didn't want to leave them in the lurch by going, guys, I'm out of here because I just want to do something different. I had to find that time period where it would make sense logistically for them to get somebody else up to speed with like their whole catalog. And those guys have a shit ton of songs now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're 9 or 10 records deep,
That's good. Again, that's really kudos to you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate that you appreciate that, because that's a very sublime thing to say. You know what I mean?
It's not an easy thing to do. And it's your good intentions. My younger son is very, very loving, good intentions. And I see him sometimes and he makes decisions because his intentions are good, but they're not decisions that serve him, in his
Rooted in
goodness.
self-care, like you said, it's hard.
Yeah. And I always, and I, he's an adult. I can't tell him what to do and what not to. It's none of my business. I could just be there for the fallout, and hopefully he learns, the next lesson maybe won't be as painful, but, so I get it. And last question, Joe, biggest change, and before I forget, thank you very much for everything, man. You're a really cool guy. It was worth setting up 9 appointments to finally get to you.
Yeah.
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Well, probably the biggest change in my personality is vis-a-vis marriage, I think. Like the thing that people don't tell you about marriage is like, it's such an amazing experiment where you basically have to figure out how to harmonize with, like I said, a person who's totally different than you. And the more you are around that person, you're like, shit, I didn't know that was part of your preference set. Like that's me 20 years later. Let me tell you, matter of fact, that's the way it is. And what I feel is so helpful about that relationship is it's helped me to be a better listener, better communicator, and to also just be more curious about other people's values and attitudes and thoughts and feelings. And it's helped me become a better producer because I could listen to an artist's desires more fully and not superimpose my will or my just like, knee-jerk shit onto them. Like, oh no, this is the way you do this. Wait, hold on a minute. How do you do this? Because I never did that like that. And I'm curious because that's your musical genius that you have.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Well, that's a very cool, that's a guy you want producing you. So, and along those lines, let me tell people what you got going on. First of all, Joe just talked about production. That's what he spends a lot of his time doing now. What I would encourage you to do if you are a band interested in finding a really good quality producer who could work with you and not be dogmatic and dictatorial, and who does give a shit about your perspective on things and how you do things, go to Joe's website and go to this particular page. It's joepisapia.net, joepisapia.net. Go to the /work. He's got a list of everything he's been involved with there, and take a look at all that stuff. And if you have an interest in working with him, go to the contact tab up there and just write him. Let him know you're interested, and let him know what you're doing and what your experience has been with a producer, and just give him a little information so that he can have a sense of how to answer and respond even, and then you guys will go from there. But just give them a little bit of info. So go to joepisapia.net, again, pisapia.net/work. Okay, couple of things. Today, this is dropping on Tuesday the 3rd. On Thursday the 5th of this week, Joe's playing at the Basement.
And they call it the OG Basement on 8th Avenue in Nashville.
Great. The OG Basement on 8th Avenue in Nashville. So check him out there. And if you do go to the show, please tell him that you heard his interview and, let him know what a cool dude he is. Also, he has a residency at the 5 Spot in Nashville in February coming up.
Yep.
Check him out there. And he posts all his gigs on his Facebook page, and that's Joe Pisapia Music. Also, he's going to have an album out either spring or summer 2020, and he'll come on here and we'll talk about that when it's ready. And being that it is the Christmas season now, want to talk about Cosmic Christmas and More Than Make Believe?
Man, that song to me was like, I was trying to figure out how to say something like, about my specific feelings of Christmas. Like I get this, I'm a big Christmas music lover. And every year I hear the Christmas songs, I get all romantic and teary-eyed, like, oh man, these messages that we got as kids are almost subversively hippy-dippy. Like that everything's gonna work out, everybody's gonna love each other. And then you look at the internet, it's all full of road rage.
Yeah. It's,
and I thought,
not a good place to
so I thought
shop for emotional clarity.
So I wrote a song I kind of want these messages that were implanted in us as youth. I hope they're more than make believe, That was my whole thing with that song.
That's nice, man.
And I feel like it's, sometimes you write a lyric and you're like, I feel like I did a pretty good job on that one.
What Joe's saying is it's a really good song. He doesn't want to come out and say that. So I'll come out and say it. It's a really good song, and it's one of his own favorites. And if he's telling you he likes it himself, it's a good song. But check out his record, Cosmic Christmas. It's on all the streaming channels, and enjoy it. And again, let him know let him know you like it, and let him know you heard him on this show. And dude, I will look forward to you coming back next year to promote your record.
Well, I look forward to it too, Craig, and I really appreciate your time and energy.
Oh, thank you, man. Any final words of wisdom?
I think we pretty much covered it. I think I'm going to shut her down now.
You got enough quotes here. Let's see here. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Let good things happen, and everything is an experiment. And on that note, I just want to thank you very much, man. I really appreciate your time. It was really good fun talking with you, and I will look forward to you coming back next year. And have a happy holiday season, you and your wife.
Yeah, you too, Craig. Thank you.
Let me wrap this up, and then I'll talk with you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We really appreciate your support. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com and enter your name in the box there so you and I can connect on my newsletter. Please support and check out Joe Pisapia's music, and thanks, Joe, for spending time with us. Again, he's at joepisapia.net. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Joe, thanks for everything.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.